Hey winners, Kevin Ward here, YesMasters.com. One of you sent me a great question asking about how do you get sellers to cooperate when you have a listing that it's ugly, it's overpriced, and it's very difficult to show. Now here's the exact scenario that just happened with this one. And I've got an email here from one of my clients that just said this. I've got this property, it's very seldom shows, house does not show well due to pets and the owner's schedules, which means they don't ever want to show it because they have night shift work or whatever and they sleep during the day. They don't want a lockbox on it, and if they have an open house, the master bedroom has to stay closed because of the baby. The house is not clean and it smells bad, and it's overpriced. So number one, you made the cardinal mistake, number one, of taking a listing that was overpriced and without dealing with these things up front. So it's always easier to deal with these things up front. Now, how do you deal with these things up front? And how do you deal with them after the fact? If you've already got the listing, now you're stuck with it and you can't, it's not showing. She says, I've received very few calls on the house and very few showings because it's hard to show. And so guess what? Agents won't show it if it's hard to show. So here's the principle that you've got to use to get the seller to understand what has to be done, number one, and number two, to inspire them to actually do what has to be done to allow their home to actually sell. Here's the reason sellers do everything they do. One of two reasons. Number one is because they want to get away from pain. There's some pain in their life that they are wanting to get away from. Or there is some pleasure, something that they want that they are trying to go toward. So pleasure would be like they're moving into a new home. They're building a new house. They can't wait to get into it. That would be a pleasure motivation, okay? A pain motivation was I have this horrible commute every single day. I'm spending 2.5 hours in traffic every day. I'm sick and tired of the commute. The monthly payment's killing us. We're getting a divorce. Whatever it is that is going on, they're wanting to avoid pain. If they're wanting to downsize, why? Because the house is too big, too much work to take care of, the payments are a lot, whatever. That is, they're wanting to get away from pain. So you've got to understand that, number one, that sellers are motivated by either to get away from pain, or to avoid pain, or to gain something that's pleasurable for them that they can move toward, or it may be a combination of both. They may be trying to get away from something that's painful here to get to something that's pleasurable for them there. So it may be that dual motivation, which is even better. Now your job is to identify, when we talk about finding their motivation, because what do we say about selling real estate? Selling a listing, motivation is everything. Why? Because price will never be right if the motivation is not right, because they're not going to be willing to be realistic. So your job is to identify what is the pain that is driving them or the pleasure that is pulling them. So pain pushes, pleasure pulls, and you've got to identify what that is, and then you've got to highlight that by asking great questions. So in this case, you've got a situation now, you've got an overpriced listing, and they want to sell because of personal reasons and because of a long commute. However, they don't ever want to show the property. They're not willing to clean it up. They got a dog or whatever that's making it stink and hard to show. They don't want a lockbox on it because it's inconvenient. They want to have open houses, but they got a baby, so they want the master bedroom closed. Is the baby going to be there during the open house? I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's not going to work. It's overpriced on top of all of that. So here are the 4 things that it really takes to get a listing to sell for top dollar in this market. There are 4 things in any market. Number one, it's got to be priced right. Number two, it's got to show well. Okay, now if it shows ugly, it'll still sell, but the price has got to be to compensate for that. Number three, it's got to show easy. I don't care how low the inventory is in your market. If a property is hard to show, buyers will just blow it off, and they'll be like, "That there's another house. There's other houses. We're not even going to go there." Why? Because they're not emotionally attached to your house, to your seller's house, because they haven't seen it. And so they'll literally, because of the inconvenience, just say, you know what, there's other houses. If they're going to be that hard for us to show it, and they don't want to sell the house, because that's the conclusion that buyers make, if it's that hard for us to see it, they must not want to sell it. If they don't want to sell it, they're probably not going to be realistic on price, so therefore we're not going to mess with them. Why? I don't want to fall in love with a house that the seller is going to be a pain in the neck to work with and not reasonable or realistic on showing, because if they're not realistic on showing, they're not going to be realistic on the price. Now that's the mental and emotional thought process that buyers go through. So if you have a property that's hard to show, it makes it harder to sell, and it tends to make it sell for less. So the four things again. Price it right, make it show great. Number three, it's got to be easy to show. A pet, by definition, makes it not easy to show. No lockbox makes it not easy to show. Restrictive hours make it not easy to show. Okay, having a master bedroom closed because you got some personal thing going on makes it not that makes it not show well. Let's just put it that way. And then the fourth thing is you gotta have good pictures on the MLS. If you don't have good pictures on the internet, which is where most buyers go to start looking at houses, they're going to look at the house on the internet and the pictures suck or they can't see it. A lot of buyers will either one, not see it at all because they mark it out because they're going through houses and they're going like, well, they don't have pictures, they must be hiding something. Or if the pictures are really ugly, it makes the house look ugly. So having good pictures, is it the most critical thing? No, it's not. But it's important to help a house sell quickly and for top dollar. That's their first impressions. And you know the law, it's a universal law. First impressions are everything, and you only have one chance to make a first impression. So make sure that the pictures on the MLS, which are then going to be the pictures on the internet of the house, are absolutely awesome. Okay, so that's all foundational. Now how do you deal with the one that you're already stuck and you basically violated all four rules, except maybe you got good pictures, which if the house is ugly, it's kind of hard to have good pictures. So what do you do now? Well, you ask them questions. So let me ask you this. Do you guys really want to sell this house? Now, this is a conversation I'm having now. If they've already listed with me, overpriced, ugly, smelly, and don't want to show it. Okay? So now you've got to go back and identify their motivation, and then you've got to lead them through the process of feeling the pain. So let me ask you guys this. Obviously, we're not getting the showings we need. We're not getting the traffic we need. So I'm looking at what are we going to have to do to actually get this house sold. So let me just first ask you guys, do you still definitely want to get this home sold? Now, this is where let's first talk about your motivation. Do they want to sell or not? Yes, we definitely want to sell. Okay, great. So, and I understand you're wanting to sell because of this and this. Is that correct? Now let's just play with something like you're wanting so then the main reason you want to sell is because of the commute. I mean, Mr. Seller, you're sick and tired of spending 3 hours in your car every single day in traffic. It's stressful for you. You come home tired, and it's stressful for your wife, and you're getting home after dark in the winter. So it sounds to me like you guys are ready to get that out of your life, right? Okay, so let me ask you this. How much longer are you willing to endure 3 hours a day sitting in traffic? Well, I don't want to spend any more time. Okay, so can I explain to you the choice we're going to have to make? Right now, we're getting very few showings for a couple of reasons. Number one is because the house is not showing well. Now, this is where then you go through what the issues are. Now, either way is fine with me. But if you want to get rid of the commute and sitting 3 hours a day in traffic and coming home worn out and stressed, and you miss the seller having to deal with late dinner and all that kind of stuff because he's getting home so late, are you guys okay continuing to do that for another 6 months or a year? No, we want to get rid of that. Okay, great. So there are some things that are going to happen for us to be able to help you, Mr. Seller, get rid of that long, agonizing daily commute. Are you guys with me? Oh, what do we need to do? Okay, well, here's what we need to do. We need to do this. We need to clean the house up. We need to do open houses without restrictions, like the master bedroom. If people won't buy a house if they can't see the master bedroom. Period. End of story. That's just the way it is. So you've got to educate them, but by telling them, they're just going to resist you. We got to put a super lockbox. I don't want a super lockbox. Okay, so now let's go back. What do? What they consider a lockbox to represent pain. It may be security issue, security concerns, which is kind of interesting because if somebody wants to break into your house, the lockbox is the hardest way to get in. They're going to find a much easier way to break into your house. Trust me. Lockbox is not a good way to do it. Okay, but they have that concern, so you've got to educate them. They may be saying, well, I don't want agents to come without an appointment, and I've had agents that showed up without an appointment because we had a lockbox and they just took advantage of it and they came in anyway. Okay, you got to deal with that. I understand that's an inconvenience. We'll put it very clear on the MLS, appointment required, and that they got to call me for security instructions, and I'll take care of all that. However, you guys do want to get the home sold, correct? And you don't want to be sitting here for the next 6 months having to keep the house clean and still be stuck in the commute, right? See, what I'm doing is every time I'm trying to educate them on something that they have to do, the Supra lockbox, if that's an issue, represents pain to them. Having to get the dog out of the house represents pain. Having to clean the house, having to paint the house, all of that represents pain to them because they don't want to do it. Okay, they work weird hours, and so they don't want showings anytime after 1 p.m. in the afternoon, let's say, or they don't want any showings before 3 p.m. They want showings between 3 and 7 only. Whatever it is, and they only want it on every third and fourth Thursday of the month. Whatever it is, it's because if they show it at other times, it's a pain for them to have to do that. Okay, so you just have, you know what, guys, so I guess the real question is it's a pain to move. You're aware of that. Do you guys really want to make this move or not? Because there's going to be some inconveniences for us to be able to get your home sold for top dollar and get you guys into your next home, or get you guys whatever their motivation is. So what you've got to do is take and find the pain, and then you've got to attach everything that they're struggling with, everything that they're resisting you on. You've got to attach it to a different pain. They're overpriced. What do you got to do? You got to reduce the price. Well, reducing the price, does that represent pain or pleasure? It represents pain. It's huge pain. We're losing $15,000 if it's overpriced by $15,000. Well, the reality is you're not losing $15,000. The reality is you're simply acknowledging that the market is not going to give you that $15,000 that you would like for the house. Now, if you feel like it's $15,000 more than everybody else, there's good news and bad news. Well, the bad news is nobody's going to pay you $15,000 more than it's worth. The good news is you get to keep the house. It's because it's worth $15,000 more to you than anyone else. Isn't that exciting? Oh wait, no, you want to move. So maybe that's not good news. See, it always goes to the highest bidder, right? Now, don't be afraid to use a little humor when you're sitting there and dealing with somebody, helping them to come to grips with the pain of the reality of what they're going to need to do to make that happen. So you're going to literally have to ask them questions to say, so you do want to sell the house, correct? Well, and again, now you're looking for motivation. And if they start wavering on that, say, well, you know what? It sounds to me like the two of you need to have a conversation and decide what you really want to do. Because based on what we're seeing with the market, there's two options you got. You can either bite the bullet, clean the house up, let's get the smell fixed, let's get the dog out of here, let's get allow agents to show it, let's get a super lockbox on it so it will show, and so agents will show it. And let's get the price where it will get it sold for the best price that we can get in this market. Or let's take it off the market and you guys just enjoy staying here until you're ready to move. And then when you're ready, and you're sick and tired of the commute enough, you're willing to go through the inconvenience of moving, I'll be able to help you. Does that make sense? Literally do a takeaway. You know what? It sounds to me like, based on what you're wanting to do, why not just take the house off the market and you guys should stay here? Or at least you guys need to have a conversation to decide what you really want to have happen. Don't be afraid to use a little bit of a takeaway to say, look, why are you even selling right now? You want to get rid of the commute, but you don't want it bad enough to do what it takes to sell the house. Are you following me? And you've got to constantly ask questions, say, so which is more important to you? Getting the house sold and getting rid of this commute, or is it the inconvenience of showing the house, putting a lockbox on and all that? It's kind of, we may end up having to choose one or the other. If you have to choose one or the other, which one do you want to choose? Now, if you're the agent and you're attached to an unsellable listing, you're not going to be willing to have this conversation. You've got to be unattached to enough, you're willing to give up a non-sellable listing because you're a professional and because you know it's not going to sell. Educate them, find their pain and pleasure, ask them questions to say, how's that feel? Tell me more about that. Is that something you're okay with? If they're going through some kind of personal situation and they need to sell the house and they're like fighting everything you're trying to get them to do. So go back to the pain of what they say their reason is for selling. So it sounds to me like you guys are okay living in that situation. Is that okay with you? No, it's not okay with us. Then can I tell you what we're going to have to do to make this happen? And then you educate them on the truth. But you do it not by just coming in and telling them pound, 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 pound. You identify pain, ask them questions to getting them to say, yes, we want this to happen. Yes, we want this to happen. No, we don't want to not sell. We do want to sell. Yes, great. Get them saying yes, yes, yes. Then you educate them on what changes they got to make it happen. Be strong, be confident, be firm and friendly, and you'll get the results that you need.